Hey everybody, my name is Natalie Asmani. I'm a licensed agent here in Michigan. I service Oakland, Livingston, and Genesee County. Today we're going to talk all things divorce and what to expect when you decide to sell your home and what options you might have about doing so. So, it's here, the D-Day. I am so sorry if you are going through this. I know it's not a pretty thing. Been there, done that. Hopefully it's amicable, and if it's not, I'm even more sorry. So let's get started. You guys are ready for a divorce. Well, now you got to figure out what to do with the living situation. Sometimes you guys can live amicably together under the same roof during the divorce process, and typically divorces can take up to 6 months to even a year. And if they're amicable, they go smoother. If they're not, it can be dragged on. There's going to be a lot of things that you guys are going to be able to discuss with your attorneys and try to figure out an agreement on what you guys decide to do with your assets and everything so forth, including custody if you guys have children. Now, the marital home is probably where you're going to be needing to figure out what to do because, well, you both need to live somewhere and not together anymore. So that makes things a little tricky, doesn't it? Now, first things first, I just want to let you guys know that all of this information is for entertainment purposes and for informative purposes. I am only a licensed agent. I am not an attorney, and I am only giving generalized knowledge. A lot of situations can be different. There could be different factors involved. So please take that into consideration when listening to this. This is just an overgeneralization of what typically occurs. Now, in Michigan, we're considered an equitable state when it comes to divorce. So that means that your home, if it were to be sold, will be for the most part split 50-50 and, equally split. Now, like I said, different situations can be a little different. There might be different factors that come into play with that. Now, if you're just residing in a home and the other person is the owner, that makes things a little bit more complicated. However, we're going to focus on if it were purchased by both of you during your marriage. Then you know that you're going to have a fair share. Okay? So, what are our options? Well, first, I want to just give you advice that you should really find a real estate agent that is not going to be biased associated to either one of you, that's going to be able to be neutral so that it makes it smoother and there's no distrust or anything of that nature going on. You want to make sure that you can make this agent not feel like they're stuck in a high conflict situation to the best of their ability. So you guys are going to have to mutually communicate with this agent. You guys are going to have to be transparent with this agent, and you're going to have to work together until the divorce is finalized. So a lot of the time in the options are for what you can do during a divorce and selling the home is that maybe one person's residing and the other person is staying elsewhere. Now, maybe they want to go hurry up and go buy another home. Sometimes they might be in the position to do so. Sometimes they may not. They have this mortgage hanging over them and they aren't qualified until that home sells to go buy another home. So you might have to go rent somewhere or stay with a family member. So those are options that, you need to take in consideration when you guys aren't able to live under the same roof anymore. Some couples, what they decide to do is kind of do a nesting thing, especially if there's children. So the children can stay in the home and they're not being disrupted. And then you guys rotate and take turns. So maybe one person is there for a week and the other person stays with a family member and then comes back and rotates. A lot of the time, that is what parents do, just so that the kids can have some consistency through a divorce. And I highly recommend it myself. I think that would have been wonderful if we were able to do that. But unfortunately, in my situation, we were not. Now, during that time, though, you have to be mindful if you do have children that you have to have the home show ready, right? You don't want the home a mess when it's presentable. There might be, factors to take into play too before you put it on the market. Maybe you guys need to fix it up a little bit. Maybe there's some things you need to jazz up for it to really sell to the price that, you guys want to sell it at. So, you might have to put some money into the home before you get it bought out. Now, speaking of bought out, there's another option that you can do is being bought out. So let's say your soon-to-be ex is wanting to stay in the home and they want to, let you go, say somewhere else, and you're fine with that. So what they can do is they can buy you out. Now, what does that look like? Well, they're going to have to refinance the mortgage. They're going to have to get their name underneath the mortgage, and they have to be qualified enough to be able to own that home and have enough backbone, financial support, and qualifications in order to do so. So that has first mean things first. If they're not qualified enough for them to own the home underneath themselves without your additional income, then that can be a problem. So then you might end up having to resort to selling the home. Now, if they are in good standing, they can buy you out. Now, what does that look like? Well, let's say you guys bought the house for $200,000 many years ago. Now, we did a market analysis, which you would have to have a realtor do and analyze and see how much your house would ideally sell for. So, let's say it would sell for 400 today, which means that you guys would make a profit of 200,000. So the person that's living in the home would have to buy out the other person in an equal split of that $100,000 in the profit of the home. So that means that they would owe you $100,000. So they need to figure out a way where they can either pull out a loan or do some sort of, magic making to occur so that they can then buy you out of the home. Now, the last option is that you guys agree to keep the home. Maybe you guys want to keep it for the children, which I think is always a wonderful option as well. There's things like, a ladybird deed and, establishing a trust so that the children can have the home later in life. With that being said, though, that means that whoever is going to be the one to pass it on to the children, they're the ones that are ultimately going to be staying on that deed and that mortgage. And once again, they're probably going to be obligated to buy you out first and then do that. So there's another option where you guys can just mutually agree to keep the marital home and say you go rent, or maybe you're able to go buy a home without that expense. Then you guys can keep the home together jointly still till an agreed upon date that will be put into the judgment of the divorce. So I hope this helps you a little bit understand the process of what options you have during your divorce and selling your home. If you have any questions or, need assistance, feel free to reach out to me. You can shoot a comment below. You can shoot me an email. I'm happy to help you. I've been there. I love assisting people through life transitions. And here's the great news. I know it's hard. I know it's rough, and it's never fun to go through a divorce. But once that house sells, there's going to be a huge sigh of relief and your whole new life gets to start. And that is the beautiful thing, is that we all get to turn a new leaf and start a new chapter. So thank you guys so much for being here. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions.